Hi, I'm here today with David Behr, the Vice President of Business Intelligence for United Surgical Partners, Inc., based in Dallas, Texas. So, David, tell us a little bit about what you do there.
So I was brought in to USPI about 3.5 years ago, and it's a company that owns over 250 surgery centers, 20 hospitals, been around since '98, and they didn't have a data warehouse team or a business intelligence team. So basically I was brought in to help build that from the ground up.
Wow, okay, and you did?
We did. We took the approach of first picking we actually took the approach of let's figure out the BI first and then data warehouse second. So we went with BusinessObjects. I'd used that at 2 separate companies before, so knew we were comfortable with it. Some of the executives had used it in previous jobs as well, so it was an easy decision at that point. And then once we got that installed and in place, knowing it can work, the next step was let's hire a data warehouse team and try to find some quick wins on what some quick data pieces we can grab from the business, start utilizing the business intelligence tool just to get some buy-in before we started really building it out.
Yeah, that's a really interesting approach, but it's one that kind of makes sense in the sense that if you can get something of value in front of the business first, they're more likely to spend some money on the bigger task of creating the data warehouse, which often is a lot more expensive.
Yes, our goal was from day one when I started, the goal was in 6 months, let's have a functioning dashboard out to all facilities, visual income statement. We actually presented it here, I think 3 years ago, I guess.
Right.
And it was we actually used InfoBurst. We actually bought business intelligence, BusinessObjects with InfoBurst from the start. So we were able to build this dashboard and get it pushed out to all the admins at the 250 centers within 6 months, so they can visually see their income statement, capture their best practices, and they were used to seeing that on a spreadsheet that was 600 rows deep. So
Wow.
that was our first big win, basically.
And so that did the trick. As a
That did the
result
trick,
of implementing that, they then said, we want more.
Yeah, we continued on let's find the low-hanging fruit, what data sources existed from prior applications that we can quickly turn a universe around, that we can then start producing, teaching how WebE works, build some reports, and continue down the dashboard path. Then, after we proved that out, after about a year, we then went heavy on data warehouse work. Now let's start bringing in a lot of data sources from all the different applications we have, so we can then do a lot more robust type reporting and dashboards.
So where does that stand today? How far have you
So that
got with
stands,
that?
we've come a long way there. So we have the 250 facilities are all on a patient accounting system that's 20 years old and is not web-based, so they're all siloed databases. So it took about 8 months to a year to warehouse all that data, so we now have that data facility-wise, facility-level data in our data warehouse that we can report consolidated numbers, which was a huge win. We have our hospitals that are on a different application, Cerner. We've got that in our data warehouse. We've got our purchase order data, our income statement data, labor data. So we have all these different data sources now warehoused, which is a huge win. So now we can start playing with all these different universes and data sets and combine them into all kinds of WebE reports and ultimately dashboards. And then our biggest project for the past year has been, now that we've got all this data, we've got all these reports, we've got all these dashboards, how can we present this in a central location versus, we started off bursting. Then we started sending some reports to networks. Then we had our intranet website host some of the dashboards. So now it was, how can we build a portal to house all these applications we're building?
Okay.
And that's where we are now.
So, show us a little bit about this portal and what you've managed to create so far.
Yeah, a little background on this portal. The project came about because before they had my group, before I was there, before Data Warehouse BI, there was a company that we were paying about $1 million a year to go in and warehouse our patient accounting system, the archaic system we used, that database. I think they were former employees of the software company, and they decided, hey, we can start a company and warehouse data for these companies like USPI, and then turn around and provide a portal, basically an IBM Cognos cube, that we would then log into and the facilities could log into and get their reporting. And we can at least see consolidated reporting that way. And every facility had to pay for their licensing. It came to about $1 million a year. We didn't have much control over what these cubes were. We just knew we can go in there and pull from it. So the whole concept first of having a BI team and data warehouse team is we should eventually be able to get rid of that and build our own data warehouse and own reporting. And then how can we replace that tool with something like this, where a portal where the facilities could now log into this and get everything they had plus more, and it would cost $0. That was the goal. So it was an easy sell in a sense that all we had to do is say, hey, if we can do this as a project, build a portal and warehouse the data ourselves, off the bat, that's going to save the company at least $1 million a year, because it's going to be more as we acquire and get more facilities on board. So the first thing was, this project will save us $1 million a year. And then on top of that, it's not going to be just patient accounting system information. Once we build a portal like this, it can house our finances, financial reporting, operations. If you look across, which we'll get into here, you can see all the different buckets of reporting. We've got labor, which comes from a different tool, purchase orders. So we can house now not just the patient accounting information they saw in this other tool. Now we can have all reporting, all dashboards can be in one central location. So that was another selling point.
So what did you use to build the portal?
So the first path we pursued was, because our intranet at USPI is done in SharePoint, we thought, why don't we just build it in SharePoint so it can slot right in there? We spent a few months going down that path and then realized, because we were using another product, there were limitations to what we wanted to do. We did have a .NET developer on staff in our data warehouse team, so we decided, why don't we just build this from scratch? We'll show the guy exactly what we want and have him just build it. So we actually mocked up this portal from day one. It was, all right, I went into Xcelsius and said, in my vision, if we were going to have a portal, and I used the components of Xcelsius and put tabs across the top, folders on the left, and had a few reports that I put in there and dashboards. And that's what I presented to our executive team, that if we built a portal, it can look not exactly like this, but just think about something like this. And from there, we got sign off, and then we passed that on to the developer and said, all right, build exactly what you see here, but make it look nicer and cleaner. And that's what we're going to do in .NET as our portal.
Fascinating. So
Yeah.
you actually used Xcelsius to
Xcelsius
prototype.
was the prototype, the mock-up. It actually worked. You can click across the tabs and the folders, and then reports would pop up, but it was all mocked up. It was all.
And then, the developer used that prototype to actually
prototype.
build a custom portal.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. So show us a little bit of how it works.
So the way it works is we start off, well, what we did is we took, in our other tool we went, because there were so many reports over the past, since '98, reports that were built in this other product, that we had the lady that was in charge of that tool go in and do analysis on what were the top 50 reports in that tool based on audit trail, which are the top 50 reports. So the first thing we did is we had to find these 50 reports, and then of those 50, find out which one can we consolidate. So maybe 4 reports could actually be turned into one WebE report, or 6 reports can be one WebE report, because in WebE you can do tabs.
Right.
And we thought, if they had 5 different reports that were really the same thing but just different time ranges, why don't we make that one WebE with tabs, and each tab or workbook is a different time range. So it ends up being one report. So we took that list of 50 down to 22 for our phase 1 of what we wanted to put in our Pulse. That's what we call this, Pulse BI. So from there, we divided the team. There were really 3 teams involved in this. One was the data warehouse team. We wanted to make sure that the tables that we were using to build the reports are going to mimic exactly what those old cubes look like. So everyone would be familiar with what they're looking at. So we had a data warehouse project to mimic the cubes in the other tool and the Cognos tool.
Yep.
Then we had my team that was working on making sure we had the layout and the rules and how the portal was going to work. And then we had this other report writing team under the umbrella here that was to take the old reports from the old system, write them now in BusinessObjects against our new data warehouse, and test and make sure that they look identical, right? That was the whole, these were all going on parallel. So we can have the report writing going, data warehouse going, building the views, and getting the design of this working.
So it's quite interesting that you actually, consolidated as well. So you took what was a large number
Yes.
of Cognos reports and reduced them to a smaller number of WebE reports by using.
Same data, just in
Yep.
a cleaner, easier, less report manner, basically.
Right.
And some of them we were able to turn into dashboards versus static PDF or static Excel. It's a mix of all 3 really in here.
Oh, cool.
So then once we had those reports, we then decided, all right, we're going to have the layout of this before I get to the top part. But the way we've set this up is every report we put in here is going to fall into a category.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a revenue report? Is it an operations? Is it a scheduling report? Is it procurement, clinical. So we have these different categories it can fall into. Once we define the category it falls into, the categories go across the top, right? So all these tabs are the different categories. Then if you go into a category, so if I'm on this operations tab, we then have folders on the left. And the folders are categorized strictly by the refresh rate. How often does this report you're looking at refresh? So you can see in there we have, in this operations tab, we've got a daily folder and a monthly folder. And you see a 1 and a 3. That means we have 1 daily report, 3 monthly reports that fall under there. And then if you open the daily, you'll see the 1 daily. If you open the monthly, you'll see the 3 monthly. And if
you
it's,
can see right away if it's a PDF.
yeah, so one of the things we wanted to do is put the icon next to the type of report, because we have there's really 4 different types of reports we have out there. One is the static Excel report. Then we have the static PDF report. We also have the ability in here, not on this, but where you can choose which one do you want. Do you want to view it in Excel or view it in PDF? But we'll default to what the primary is over there. And then we have the Swift file for all the dashboards. And then our newest one we have out here, it's also a Swift, but we have a different icon for it because this is the query panel. This is the Discover component. So I can talk to you about how we came up with these different icons and what they all mean, really. If we go back to operations, so we default the first thing when they log in. What happens is they click on the Pulse button. It recognizes who they are through Active Directory in the top right corner. And based on who you are, it's going to populate your hierarchy. So every facility has an RVP, a regional vice president. So RVP might be responsible for about 10 facilities. And then an RVP feeds up to a market president up to a group president. So what happens is when they log in, and because this is me, I'm not a facility administrator, I just default myself into this facility. But if I happen to be the administrator of this St. Louis facility, I would see my facility here, I'd see my RVP, my market president, my group president. It would all be grayed out, so it's secure to just the amount of data I could see. I can't go look at my RVP's other facilities. It's stuck on who I am. And then this is a very lightweight application. It's all data-driven. So as soon as it sees who I am, it can go see all the reports that are out in our reports folder that are assigned that my facility has. And by that, it's going to create the tabs, and it's going to create all the folders and the reports that fall into the folders, just links. So it's not actually grabbing the reports. It's just querying the tables that house the information to then display it here as just hyperlinks is what we're really looking at here. So it takes less than a second for the whole thing to populate. And if you have data in a tab, it'll be visible like that. If you don't have data, it's grayed out. So this is telling me this facility has no labor reports. I think that's it. They just don't have any labor reports at this point. And the way it works is if I'm in a daily folder and I click on a report there, it's always going to pull up the most recent instance of the report. So that's telling me this is the report that ran today, right? So I'm looking at the most recent version. I also can pull archived versions, so we can control the archiving amount. Do I want to give the person the ability to look at the last 30 reports, the last 5 reports? Each report we can customize the archive there. So this is an example of a Swift. This is a dashboard. It's actually an Xcelsius dashboard that we built, and then we bursted 250 versions of offline dashboards. And then all this is doing is it sees who I am, sees the facility I belong to. When I click on it, it's the coding behind the scenes is saying, go look in that folder on the network directory where we save all these. It's looking for that report in that folder and look for that Oracle ID number. This is what we call them. They have their little facility ID numbers. So 12109, and go grab the file that's got 12109 underscore admin daily dashboard, and then serves it up right there. So if I were to change a facility and apply, this is now a different facility that's going to pull up. It knows who I am now from that facility. It's going right now, calling that, and you can see the name of the facility change. Now I'm getting that file. So to the end user, nothing runs. Everything's pre-run. We use InfoBurst. So if I'm looking at a weekly report, let's say, or a monthly report here, let's grab like a, and I'm in test, so there's no guarantee that, yeah, see some of these we don't run here. Let's see if I can get one to pull up. Here's one. So if I'm opening an Excel report, you'll see it pops open the actual report right there. Here's one with multiple tabs.
Yeah.
Right? And it pulled the most recent version of it up. If it didn't exist, if we haven't run the report yet, you get that message that we saw before. If I haven't run this report and it's not visible, Which one did I pull earlier that didn't come up? Nope, that one's available. So if it pops up, it's available. This one, right? This is telling me this report hasn't run yet, basically. So if the report hasn't run, I'm looking at the daily. I'm expecting to see the one that ran today. If it hasn't run yet, you get this message. One of our enhancements we want to do is we want to notify you if the most recent version has run yet.
Excellent. So what you've fundamentally done then is to move from a push model,
Yes.
right, where you've been pushing things out to people, to now a self-service model, right, where they can just go to the portal and get what they want when they want it,
Yes.
right? And the fact that, you know, the reports are all pre-run, the dashboards are all pre-run, they're just sitting there waiting for them, right, to open up based on their credentials, and also based on date and time, so they are getting the latest version,
Yes.
right, of what they're seeing. This is great. What kind of feedback have you had since you've released it?
So the feedback, that's a good question. This has been out for 3 months now. And what I've realized, because I've been going around to all our market presidents, and there's about 10 of them,
Yep.
have these market meetings where they get their admins together, their facilities together to have meetings. So I've been going to all these administrator meetings to get feedback on, have you been using it? If you have been using it, what do you like? What don't you like? And it's been very interesting. One thing I've noticed is the product that we spent $1 million on every year, I mean, it's a yearly fee.
Yeah.
The first question I ask is, how many of you use that tool? Only about 20% or so even raised their hand for that. So one thing it tells me is we had this expensive tool out there and not everyone was most people weren't using it, which made me then realize this was billed as, when we built this, as a replacement for that tool as phase 1, and then a phase 2 and 3 would be now it's going to encompass more than just that data. It can be everything, right? So what I've realized is at these meetings is this isn't a replacement tool. It's actually a brand new product for facilities to start using because they never really use the other tool. So I've had to adjust the way I'm presenting when I hear that. It's not a, you guys all use that tool, we've retired it, now you're using this. It's changed to, most of you never used that tool, so let me introduce to you a new tool that's out available to you at no cost. And they were paying the fees for the other tool, by the way. So we told them, you don't have to pay fees anymore, and now you've got this tool. So, but it's interesting, when you're in large crowds of people, I've also noticed you don't get the negative, you don't get the criticism. And when I go, I'm looking for not, oh, everything's great. I want to know what's wrong with it. What am I missing? And I haven't been getting that. So I'm trying to figure out a better way to, maybe it's one-on-one or smaller groups where they don't feel like their RVP and market president are in the room listening and they can't say bad thing. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out. But what we did do is build in an audit trail on this. So anytime someone logs in or clicks on anything, we track each click. So I can easily see on any given day how many people are in it right now, for any given month, who's logged in, what markets are using it, what regions are using it, what reports are getting clicked on a lot, which ones aren't ever getting clicked on. So I'll be able to see what's going on behind the scenes.
That's cool.
Which is good. That's a good start for me.
Yeah, so and what are you seeing in terms of usage?
So we're at 500 users now, last I checked, which is good. But I mean, ultimately I want to double that because we have 250 facilities. The way we set this up is for each facility, the administrator gets default access, the material manager gets default access, the clinical director, and the business office. So there's 4 users in each facility that out of the box get access to this. Times 250, that means I'd expect 1,000 people in there. Plus we also have corporate accounts, you know, corporate users and market, they all use it too. So really this thing should be built for, you know, well over 1,000 people once it's going, once we get going on it. So we're at 500 now. And again, from these meetings I've been going to, I've noticed, they didn't know it was there, even though we've done several webinars on it. It's hard to get 1,000 people together to learn about a product. And we've done several webinars. I go to these meetings, but there's also turnover going on in facilities. You know, this admin moves, new one comes in. So it's how do we keep them aware of what's going on? So I almost need to hire like a business intelligence marketing person on my team that can be solely responsible for marketing what we do, because it's hard when you've got 50 states of facilities all over the place and people moving it around. How do you keep people aware of what we're doing?
But again, from your audit logs, you can probably...
But from audit logs, you can see from the people that are using it,
who are the heavy
who are they and what do they do? And then I can actually use that data to find out who isn't and use that to start targeting those people.
Exactly.
Why aren't you using this? What are we missing here? Did you know about this? What can we do better? So that's kind of my next phase.
Yeah, and maybe you haven't received the criticism because it is that good.
I doubt it. I'd like to think that, but I can't imagine phase 1 of a new product doesn't have its flaws somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, one of the flaws we knew going into this, which leads me to the next thing, is in the old product they had, it wasn't so much like this. It was they'd open a report and run it. And then they'd have the ability to do some interaction with the data. And I think that's what scared people away from it, because you're running a surgery center, you don't want to do some deep dive analysis on your data, you just want to get the data. So my theory is that's why they weren't jumping in there. But there are a lot of them that still want to have that interactive analysis. So we have in here dashboards, we have Excel, we have PDF, but we also, using InfoBurst, we're able to build connected dashboards and disconnected dashboards that appear in here. So this gives them some of the interactive ability, at least dashboard ability. Let's pull this up. So here's like a clinical, I think it's still loading here. It's just pulling up. So this is going to pull up the most recent clinical dashboard. And this is really used by the administrator and the clinical director of a facility. But it's an example of you're not getting just a static report. I'm getting an actual dashboard that they can come on here, click, look at some different metrics, and interact it just like you would any other dashboard, right? So that's the one piece we've added in here that was new that they didn't have. I don't know why there's only one metric in there. And then the last piece was the drag and drop piece, which really the only way to do that in the past was you'd have to go into BusinessObjects and go into Web Intelligence and open up connect to Universe and drag and drop and do some analysis. Mm-hmm. And this doesn't have this because this is outside of BusinessObjects. We're able to at least use BusinessObjects to write the reports, push them, display them, and even take dashboards and push them to the network and display them. But we can't, if you wanted to do the drag and drop, you have to go into Webby, right? So we have our power users, not the facilities, but in the corporate world, we've got these power users in different divisions. They've got access to our BusinessObjects. We have the Edge version, so it's limited in licensing. But our big thing was how can we get facilities to do quick ad hoc reporting without having to go in there, but keep it really simple so we don't have to train them.
Right.
So we actually had InfoSol create us a new component in BusinessObjects, or for Xcelsius. So our newest enhancement from June, just rolled out a few weeks ago, it's in test, is this new folder called ad hoc. So I told you we had Excel,
Yep.
PDF, Swift, and then this ad hoc was our newest component. And really, it's another Swift file, but we want to change the icon because it looks different to the end user. When you click on it, what this is doing, I'm in my revenue, physician cases, and expected collections ad hoc query panel. And this is now, really all it is it's Xcelsius using this new component you guys built called Discover. Your UK Labs team built it. And what it is this is one component dropped into Xcelsius, and I link that component to an XDC. So I took a Webby report, I ran it for all 250 facilities, built an XDC off that, so now I've got this XDC sitting on the InfoBurst server that this is pointing to, and as an end user, you can drag and drop from here and filter your data. And in fact, just to show you, let me impersonate, because I'm not at a facility, I don't have access to do that, because it's using security. So if I log in as a administrator of one of our facilities, so I can impersonate that user as an admin here. So it's logged me in, and now you can see that there's my facility. You can see who my RVP is, market president, group president. I can't do anything else except see my facility. But if I now go into this ad hoc query panel, the first thing it's doing is it's seeing who I am and running a query behind the scenes and telling me I am at facility 12702, which is correct, right? If I look there, it's 12702. So it's already pre-filtered the cache just for my facility. And you can see if I'm an admin of multiple facilities, they both show up here, but this guy's the admin of one facility. And now I can grab, let's say I wanted to look at facility ID. I wanted to see my breakdown of cases by specialty. I can just drag some fields. I want to sum that. Maybe I want to see the period in there too. And just, I can either do a filter here if I want to. I can filter on any of these fields, or I can just view results. It's running a query against the cache, bringing it back right there. So you can see the facility is only for, even though the cache has the data for everybody, it's pre-filtering on only my facility. There's the different periods, there's my different specialties, and there's my case counts.
That's really cool.
And we can,
Yeah.
if I only wanted to look at, let's say, orthopedic, I can just type orth, and you can see it pre-filtered right there. I can just filter further. So I can see really quick, here's the periods, here's my orthopedic cases, for each of the months. I can export that to Excel. So this is now giving our end users the ability to, if they need something on demand really quick, they don't have to go to their analyst that sits in the corporate office or call us to build a report. They can go into here really quickly and drag and drop, export to Excel, get what they need, and then go from there. So this is that fourth new layer we've added. We've got the static Excel, PDF, dashboards, and now query panel, all housed within this portal.
Brilliant. That's really good. Excellent. And obviously, with 500 users already on the portal, more coming along.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to become very interesting in the next few months.
Yeah, and really my goal is I think this will evolve into more of a dashboard query panel tool and less on the static reporting except for the basics. I'm hoping that's what evolves to, because I know your labs team has a lot of new features that you can do with dashboard. So ideally, I'd like to get a lot of these reports redesigned into a dashboard format where you only have a handful of really good dashboards in here that answer all the questions they would have gotten from those static reports. And it's the base is there, the foundation is there to do that now.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, we'll have to get back together again in a few months and see
See where we are.
see where it's happened. Well, thank you very much, David. That
Sure.
was excellent. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.